Alright, so I created this hi-hat generator inside of Ableton using just the stock plugins, and it basically lets you create infinite number of hi-hats. You can generate pretty much any tone you like based off this DS hi-hat device that's been around in Ableton since the 10th version, I believe. And then dial it further with all these knobs in the signal processing chain. So I'm going to walk you through this real quick. We have the 4 yellow knobs that control the input signal from the DS hi-hat. You can control the pitch, of the tone, the decay, and the attack of the incoming signal. And then we have the fat noise knob here that lets you control the amount of noise that's introduced to the signal coming from the DS hi-hat, and it's mapped to erosion. You have frequency, width, and the amount all controlled by the same knob. So the more value you get in this knob, the more noise is introduced for that additional grit and live sample-like feel to it. And then we have a shifter that's set up to ring modulation, and fine pitch is controlled by this macro knob here. I like to use this knob for some fine pitch control for the resonance on the hi-hat. It's a pretty cool thing to automate or map an LFO to, just to get a little bit of extra movement to your hats. And then the next thing in the signal chain, we have the crunch and the transient knobs. Those are mapped to the drum bus here, and they are responsible for the saturation and the transient emphasis. The way transient knob is set up in Ableton is a little bit counterintuitive. So when you pull this knob down, you're actually emphasizing your transients even though you're going in the negative value. So this knob is flipping it in the other direction. So as you increase the value on this knob, you're emphasizing the transients. Then you have your low pass filter, just to get rid of unnecessary low rumble depending on the genre you're working in. And then you have your high pass filter and resonance controls here to dial in this experimental kind of trappy, darker sounds. You can dial back the cutoff frequency on the filter and then increase the resonance. I just really emphasize those resonances and make some crazy hi-hats using that. And then lastly, there's a compressor just to get your dynamic range under control. And in the end, we have our utility knobs, their trim and limiter clip switch. By default, when this value is set to 0 on the limiter clip knob, you have the limiter engaged. So whatever signal you have, once it exceeds 0 dB, it gets attenuated by the limiter. Any value from 1 and above engages the soft clipper that's built in the glue compressor. So you're actually clipping your signal. That lets you create more gritty, saturated signals, so you can play around with it and dial it in, whether you want a cleaner or more saturated sound that comes from the soft clipper. And then depending on the mode you're in, the trim knob will serve a different purpose. Once you're in the limiter mode, your trim controls the gain that goes inside the limiter, so you can dial it back. And once you're in the clipper mode, the trim would control the volume post clipper, so you can basically use it as your mixer knob. And that's it. I'm gonna put it on my Gumroad for free. You can find the link in the description or like Instagram caption, whatever. Download it, feel free to use it. Let me know what you think. It's by no means an advanced way to go about sound designing your hi-hats, but I feel like it's a very fun plug and play way to go about it, as an alternative to like going through infinite sample library folders or splice search. Just lets you dial in and kind of play around with the randomization knob and get like interesting hi-hat flavors that you can dial into your taste, and then save it as your own sample and use it in your productions in the future. So yeah, enjoy.